Let's do this.
Yeah.
Welcome to the OC Politics Show, keeping politics bipartisan, local, and on the level.
The OC Politics Show with Joe Matthews.
And Todd DeVoe.
Todd, power. Power from Sacramento is showing its muscle in the OC. From court cases to public access and even cemetery. The dead, Todd, the dead.
Jeez.
Sacramento reaches the OC. When is too much state oversight too much? Where do you park your yacht? Should the state pay for boat slips to give people access to sailing? We tackle these questions and more on the OC Politics Show. And now for the political whip around.
The state overrides City of Irvine's location for a vet cemetery, opens up review to 2 sites.
California Supreme Court denies OC Board of Education petition to reopen campuses.
And OC state regulators raise concern over public access in Dana Point Harbor and their developers' plans.
People's Budget OC Group hopes to sway county supervisors on their spending plan.
Joe, what'd you do this weekend?
I just binge watched and cleaned the house because family came over.
Guess what I did?
What'd you do?
I got a haircut.
Oh, a post-pandemic haircut?
Yeah.
You feel like a new man.
I do, and we'll get into this a little bit later, but talk about state regulations and stuff like this. I mean, I was talking to the girl who cut my hair, and they had like this whiplash effect. Like they were able to go to work, then they couldn't go to work, then they reopened, and didn't, so it's craziness. So, I mean, talk about state regulation and how it does things, and it's really kind of crazy. But the state is really, putting their nose into local communities, into counties, and the state overrides the City of Irvine's location for its vet cemetery, and it opens up a review of 2 sites, right? And so let me give you a little bit of background on this veteran cemetery. So the El Toro Marine Corps base in Lake Forest, basically, it has real historic meaning to Marines, especially here on the West Coast. And it was the last place where a lot of Marines who went to Vietnam, who never came home, touched American soil. It was a ship-off point right there. I know that I went through training on that base. I've been there a bunch of times, when I was in the service. And it has a place of historical meaning and basically feeling. It's almost like holy ground, if you will. And Irvine, when they created the Great Park, part of the deal was they were going to put a cemetery in. And the way Irvine interpreted originally, and I know it's gone back and forth, was they didn't have to put it on the base. They could put it somewhere in the city of Irvine. And they were kind of doing some horse trading about, we'll give more land over here and just blah, blah, blah. So it's gone back and forth. So it looks like that the state step it in and tell them they have to do something. So they have $700,000 is set aside in the state budget to finance the study, which should be done by June of 2021. And so the 2 sites in question are both on the former El Toro Marine Corps base. So that's kind of as far as I'm concerned, that's good news. I don't know if the people of Irvine care or not, or if the city is happy with that resolution. But as a veteran and as somebody who believes that is something that should be done, I'm excited. Brian, I know you're back there. You're a Marine. What do you think of that?
I think they should honor that and place a cemetery there.
What do you think, Joseph?
They got the money. The local politician for that area already secured millions and millions and millions, tens of millions of dollars to actually build it. So, and then they have the $700,000 to study it. So, what's the problem?
Yeah. Well, the problem is they don't want to have it on that. They would rather use that base because it's open space, right? And they'd rather use it for
No,
other things, other things.
I mean, what was the problem? Is like when you have all that money lying around, what's taking so long, right? You know.
Yeah. Well,
Has
I don't know.
Irvine made objections as to why they don't want it?
I don't know what their reasoning behind not wanting it there, outside of the fact that the land is useful. You know, what I mean by that is it's a big open space for them for parks and all this other kind of stuff. And they want, like I said, they wanted a horse trade. They wanted to give a cemetery. It wasn't the idea about not having a cemetery. It was the location. And I know that the Marine Corps veterans groups, I'm sorry, the Vietnam veterans groups, they really wanted it on that base because, I mean, historically speaking, it's a very it has meaning. You know what I mean? It's going home in a sense for a lot of these guys, and so that's what they were fighting for. I don't know why Irvine wanted to do the horse trade. Is what I mean by giving it to a different location other than being on the park, but that was sort of what was going on. This was years ago, so this is something this is not a new topic, right? It's something that's been mulling around, and it goes into policy. It goes into what does the city want to do. Now, the interesting part is the state getting involved with it, and kind of pushing the issue. And that's the part that I think is, since our theme today is the state overreach. What do you think, Joe? Do you think this is state overreach, or do you think this is the proper use of state control over cities?
I think it's simple. I think that because the state has already secured it in the budget for the cemetery, that they just want to get a move on. They have the money to back it up. They can do some action. So
yeah, and this is something that's needed. I think it's something this is a long time coming. I think Irvine should just let it happen. Stop fighting, Irvine.
But this wouldn't be a national cemetery, would it? Or it'd be a state? Or
No,
it would be national. a national.
It would be like Arlington. You know where Arlington West is in Riverside?
Yeah,
I think it's going to be extension of that. Yeah, right. That's true. And then it's interesting because the cemeteries are filling up. I mean, we have, which is, I guess makes sense, right? We have a lot of veterans who are getting elderly now and passing, and if you live here in Orange County and you want to be buried in the military cemetery, Arlington West, that's a long ride, for your family to go see you.
It is a long ride.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So Joseph, tell me what's going on in the Supreme Court.
So let's change the subject and go do something a little bit lighthearted with our jazz hands again, because we are talking about that was premature jazz hands. That's for the next story. Anyway,
sorry.
I wanted to talk about the Orange County Board of Education's bid to force California to reopen school campuses for in-person learning ended Wednesday when the California Supreme Court refused to hear the case. Now, Board of Education president, what's that?
So aren't we reopening anyway?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's kind of a moot point, but they still need to. Let me tell you, there's a little story to it. So
okay, I heard the story.
Okay, so I got to tell you that the Board of Education, and by telling you a story, you're kind of looking at how the board is trying to be relevant in all this trend. We never heard of these people before. Now they got this lawsuit, and it's made them famous nationwide. So they had to kind of stick to their guns, right? So the Board of Education President Ken Williams expressed disappointment with the ruling. He said, I quote, "I am sorry that the state Supreme Court did not view that Gavin Newsom or Governor Newsom has abused his emergency powers that are given to under a real healthcare crisis. Our families and our children are suffering from not going to school." That was the case. So do you think that Gavin Newsom abused his emergency powers, keeping people in their houses instead of sending them to school?
You know, I don't know. I don't. You can go either way on that, right? But
Right.
at the end of the day, it's a public health crisis. And shutting the schools down until we had our head wrapped around what this health crisis really was is probably the right choice. And we talked about this before as far as decision making when it comes to public health crises, and we were close to doing it with less sick people with the H1N1. It just didn't hit a threshold. And when we take a look at public health issues and the spread of disease, shutting schools down is something that we do pretty regularly. If you have a flu outbreak specifically in a school, something like that, we shut that school down temporarily until to stop the spread. So this just happened to be a wider swath of schools being closed. And it is interesting because with the school politics, right? That's probably the best way to explain it. Where you have the unions, you have the parents PTA, which is basically a parent union, with conflicting opinions on things. And then at first, when they went to doing the online education, the unions were like, oh, we don't want to teach online. We want to teach in the classroom, and now, and now they're like, we don't want to teach in the classroom. We only want to teach online. So there's a lot of wavering back and forth. It's just like this really crazy mix of the way things are going. It is not, it's always hard to figure out who's on who's, what side of the story. But short term, yeah, it was a smart decision to do. Let us get our schools or their heads wrapped around it. Put in health procedures. We learned from Japan. We learned from South Korea, where they're putting sanitation stations in for the kids to come in and out. My daughter's been going to school here at a private school for the last couple of weeks, and she goes in. They have them temperature check, and they have them do the sanitation station, and before they go in and when they come out. So there's ways around these things. So I think it was a smart thing to do to close it down for a little bit and to get our head wrapped around how we can do this. That's my take on it, at least.
Well, let me give you some background in case people don't know. Last month, the board, along with a few parents and several private schools across California, took the unusual step of filing legal actions directly with the state Supreme Court. Now, last month, when the state Supreme Court ordered Newsom to respond, trustees and their supporters were elated. The 4 board members who voted to the lawsuit, Williams, Barkey, Sparks, and Shaw, they held a press conference at Costa Mesa on August 26th that resembled a rally, actually. And they had almost 200 people, adults and children, waving flags and cheering. And a few in the audience were wearing face masks as they called for schools to reopen. Now, these 2 lawsuits claims that the action of Governor Gavin Newsom and the California Department of Public Health to curb the spread of coronas was unconstitutional and violated the right to equal access to education. Newsom's order affected.
Go ahead. No, I was just thinking about the equal access to education. That's kind of interesting take.
Yeah. Newsom's order effectively closed most California school campus to in-person instruction, something the lawsuits argue is particularly tough on children with disabilities and low-income families who count on the children being in school during the day while parents are at work. So legitimate excuses, but they also wanted no masks, and they also wanted no distancing in these lawsuits. The petition asks the court to give parents the option of choosing whether their children should go back to the campus for instruction. One lawsuit was filed on behalf of the Orange County Board of Education and several parents and the Palm Lane Charter School in Anaheim. The second was filed on behalf of private schools, which is probably one of yours that got to open up already with a waiver. Okay, so late last Wednesday, the court's website, the state Supreme Court's website, had featured an announcement denials, but gave no relevant opinions explaining this rationale. I think that's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Attorney Robert Tyler, one of the attorneys who represents the Board of Education, he indicated in a statement last Wednesday that he was thinking about doing another petition. What?
Wait, the
So,
schools are, like I said, the schools are open because we're in the red zone now. So why? Unless there's
is this
money
a lawyer?
associated with it, I suppose. He's good.
We're in the red zone.
I mean, I think it's an interesting take on the idea of the lower income people who issue disability issues of equal access, because that is we had those Supreme Court cases which said you have to give equal access to education. A good friend of mine who is a 5th grade teacher in the Montebello School District, I won't say his name. We had the conversation earlier regarding that, and he was scrambling to try to find computers for his students, and they ended up being able to get some. I think they went with like a Chromebook or something like that. Anyway, they were able to get some computers to give to the kids because there's some kids that are still don't have internet at home, right? It's an expense, right? I mean, if you think about I pay $80 a month or something like that for internet access in my house. There are people that can't afford that. And so there was an article, I forget what, hey, Brian, if you remember what city it was in, where those 2 kids were sitting in the Taco Bell park. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't recall the city. I believe it was LA County somewhere.
I just remember the restaurant.
Yeah, they're sitting in Taco Bell parking lot to get free Wi-Fi, so they could do their work, So, I mean, there are some serious issues with access, and I know that the internet companies lean forward a lot and were giving people free access to the internet as much as they could. Excuse me. What I mean by that is that I think it was like a short period of time, a few months. I don't think it's forever, but that's a whole nother issue, as far as, and then also, kids being on a computer, I mean, for Christ's sake, they don't know how to type, things like this. So it makes it a little more difficult for them to do their work necessarily. But, I get that part of the lawsuit.
Well, thank you, Todd. What do we want to talk about next?
Well, okay. So you may remember that I worked for the city of Point for a period of time. And the harbor, which is not actually part of the city, it's actually just a county area. It's owned and operated, or it's owned by the county, and it's operated by contract, right? And so looks like they're going through and doing some redevelopment, trying to do some more stuff down there. There was a fire down in Dana Point a few years ago. I don't remember exactly how many years ago it was, but it really burnt down a lot of the area. And I know they kind of rebuilt up a little bit, and it looks like that they want to revamp this thing. And Mike actually asked a question about the access down there. And let me get the story for a second, Michael, and then we'll talk about your questions and that you have. So basically, they have picked a developer to go down. Now, if you've ever been down to the Dana Point Harbor here, it has at the end of it, there's the Marine Institute. That's where the Pilgrim used to be, that sunk just a few months ago. I don't know if you guys remember that story or not. It was a tall ship. Actually, that tall ship was kind of neat. It had some historic value too. But it was a replica of Henry Dana Point, right? It was a replica of his ship, and it was used in some movies and some stuff about pirates and stuff like this. And so it's kind of a cool ship. That thing sunk. Kids used to spend their night, do field trips and stuff like that on that boat. So I'm not sure what happened, what they're going to do with that. And so the Marine Institute's down there. There's beach access parking down there, things like this. Not a lot of swimming or anything like that. And it's also very close to the Doheny State Park for surfing and whatnot, and so it's a neat area if you've never been down there. If you haven't been down there, you really should take a look at it. So anyway, they are looking at putting up the harbor overhaul, and Data Point Harbor Patrol, things like this are some of the issues that they have, right? So the coastal commissioners in a staff report voiced their worry about the project could take away recreational boating opportunities from the general public, because they're going to take out 155 boat slips, which I didn't even realize that how many boat slips they had down there. It's a pretty big harbor. Because what they want to do is they want to make the boat slips a little bit larger to put in more expensive boats. Now, if you know anything, or know anybody, I should say, not anything, if you know anybody who has a boat, and especially here in Orange County, one of the hard things for them to find are boat slips, right? So if you buy a boat, one of the things that you need to negotiate in there is the ability for them to get your boat slip with the boat, because otherwise you're going to be kicked out. So that's a big issue. People are on waiting lists and stuff like this for these boat slips. Now, what I find interesting about this thing is, I don't know about you, Joe, but I don't have a big yacht to park anywhere.
Not yet, Todd DeVoe. Not yet.
Brian, do you have a yacht?
I parked mine in my bathtub.
That's right. So but the thing is they want to have more access in the yacht parking, in the boat parking, boat slips, for those that need help access to those boat slips. So I know a couple of things is there's a group over there who they rent boats and they teach sailing, and he wants more real estate. Basically, he wants more boat slips for his company. And the Dana Point Harbor Commission is saying, hey, well, we're not going to supplement your business, right, with more boat slips. So that's the guy trying to, I don't know. I mean, I don't know this guy at all, so I'm not trying to get into his head where his actions are, but that's kind of what the argument back and forth is. He's like, hey, you're taking boat slips opportunity for me. And so what he does with these boats, according to the story here, is he will take, not at risk, but people who have less access, put them on sailboats to teach them how to sail. Fair enough, right? But it's a business still. At the end of the day, he's teaching people how to sail. And so he's saying, hey, you're going to cut into my business by removing these boats, and I'm going to have less boats that can take people out, teach them how to sail. Others are saying that this is unfair to the wealthy who get to park their yachts on these boat slips. And again, like I said, there's an extensive waiting list where people are waiting for years, which this taking away 155 slips will impact that wait list even more. And so that's the basic story of what's going on. And Michael, to your question, the last part of your question, when the owner bought it before such rulings, are you talking about the boat slips or the harbor? Because the harbor is still owned by the county and maintained by the county. So this is a developer who's developing the land part of it and the slips, not necessarily the harbor itself. So the county still owns it. And yeah, and of course it's beach access, but there's going to still be free parking. They have to have like 450 something free parking spaces still. And there's also the paid parking area of the harbor. So that's what's going on with that. So Joseph, what is your opinion on this boat slip dilemma?
I'm surprised that no one's made a big deal about it. It's not bigger than it actually is, just because of the inequity of it all. I'd be surprised that more community groups haven't come out of the woodwork to kind of voice their opinion, because it is an equity issue, and it is a have or have not kind of thing. So maybe this isn't over.
equity of boat slips, though. I mean, like, I asked the question in this way because it's not like boating is not necessarily uh, a cheap or inexpensive way, right? I mean, this is not, you cannot live on your boat there in Dana Point Harbor. So it's not like no. So it's not like you're buying a boat and just parking a boat there and living on it. You can't, you can stay overnight, but it's like, you can't be there forever. You know, so, I mean, even an inexpensive boat costs you thousands of dollars a month to maintain, or year, I should say, not a month. You know what boat stands for, right?
But
Bust out another 1,000. All right, one more joke. One more joke.
Okay.
You know what they say? The greatest day and the worst day. No, the worst day and the greatest day, something like that, in a man's life is.
But
the day he buys a boat, the day he sells a boat, because of all the maintenance and the headache that comes along with it. So yeah, I mean, like boating is not necessarily an inexpensive thing, you know.
Yeah.
So I mean, I guess there's I mean, unless we start giving sailboats out to people who can't afford sailboats. I mean, how do you make it? You know, I know that you're an equity warrior here. How do you make it more equitable?
Tiered system. Do they all have to be ginormous boat slips? Can't they have a percentage of each? And then the waiting list applies to each person, and then you have that kind of equality.
Yeah, I mean, they are having it.
Equity warrior.
I mean, man, if you want to get me a free sailboat, you know, that I just want to
go on a poor man's sailboat and then a rich man's sailboat and go to the same place.
I mean, I don't even think I could afford a sunfish sailboat right now. Remember those?
Yeah.
Sunfish, right? The ones that we learned to sail when we were in the Boy Scouts. Those little, those little tiny boats, but the size of a desk. Man, those are great. Those are great boats, by the way. I think you could actually still rent those down at the harbor. At least you could. Those small boats down at the harbor.
Sorry, Todd. They're building big boat slips. That goldfish is gone. There's no more of that recreational boat slips for the poor. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, but here's the thing. Let me and I'm going to kind of bring this back over here. And I know Michael says talk about general property along the coast or the base. You know, I think in general, this is sort of my take on this. If you make that area down there and redevelop it so it's an attraction for people to go in and spend money and enjoy the ocean, because you can park there, you can walk down. There's not really a swimming beach there. I don't know if it's like kind of very rocky, you know, to enjoy that area. You know, I think it's a win-win for everybody. I think those that are fighting for equity of boat slips is kind of an odd thing, but I mean, of course, I don't own a boat. I don't sail. So I don't know what the fight's about. If anybody's hearing this and they would like to come on and discuss their boat slip and why the redevelopment and the loss of 155 slips is a bad thing for the general public, please, you're welcome to come on the show. Reach out to Joe Matthews no, just joking. You can reach out to the show. Go to sitchradio.com and you can find a number over there and give us a call. And unless producer Brian can pop up that number pretty quick on the screen. But anyway, that's what it is on that's all I got. I'm done.
All right. Okay. So now it's jazz hands back to the budget. Jazz hands back to the budget. Okay, so we're doing an update on the watch list. Now, the county budget has finally, it appears to be approved for $7.5 billion with a B dollars. Now, I'm going to give you some numbers here.
You can afford a nice boat.
Let me give you some numbers. Yeah, exactly. 40% of all overall spending is directed to community services such as healthcare and social service agencies, and more than half of the discretionary dollars go to, you know what, Todd? What half of the discretionary money goes to?
Public safety.
Public safety, correct. That's sheriff, that's district attorney, that's probation, and other public, they put public protection in parentheses departments. Now, this proposed budget is balanced, and more than 88% of the anticipated revenue is always siloed to in a special department or project-specific funds, or comes from the state and federal grants that can't be spent for other purposes. So what's left? About $890. Just kidding. $890 million is what's left, and that can be used by however the supervisors see fit. And the 490 will go to public protection, and that is over 50%, correct? All right. So that has brought out the People's Budget OC to petition against this budget. Their proposal, which they lobbied for last Tuesday on September 1st, devoted 77% of discretionary dollars to help combat racism, address housing, mental health issues, supporting youth programs, and community services. The group surveyed more than 1,000 people on how the county should spend their supervisors' control dollars, most of which came from local taxpayers. Respondents listed public and mental health, affordable housing, and youth and environmental programs as their top priorities according to People's OC website. And I went to the website and I found this nice little pie chart, okay? And some stark differences for the people, but the people have decided, not the Board of Supervisors. For community services such as affordable housing, yada, yada, it's 77%, like we said before. The Board of Supervisors budget is 17%. Environmental and conservation and climate change, 13%. For the county, 4%. For social control and public protection, 10%. So out of the 50, only 10% should go to our police force. So about a dozen supporters of the budget OC urged the supervisors on Tuesday to adjust the budget to better align with residents' priorities. Some said more crime rates are declining, and the existing jail space is not full, and the county shouldn't spend. Check this out: the county's going to spend $260 million to expand the James A. Music facility, a jail that would eventually be able to hold 2,200. Now, you have to understand that they were in a budget shortfall of $40 million, but they still want to build a new and improved jail. Todd, is this just a moneymaker?
You know what? I mean, I don't know. It's a good question. I mean, there's always a question regarding jails and whatnot, and criminal justice reform, and who belongs in jail and not. You know, and we've had this discussion prior to this regarding the fact that there's a lot of mental health issues that are going on, specifically with putting people in jail. You know, so that aside, I took a look at their survey, and I have to say that, number one, I don't know if the results are scientific, because it wasn't like it was sent out to people necessarily. You had to go find it. So if you are more likely to go look for the people's budget, which I didn't really know about until you brought the story up to me, and then look for the survey and take the survey, you're probably most likely going to be in favor of what they want anyway. So when they say the people want this, it's the people who took the survey, and I don't know what their sample size is. So I'm gonna take what the survey results are with a grain of salt, and their questions are not very scientific questions either, by the way, if you take a look at the way they look at them. So there's that. Polling is definitely not just taking like a hey survey monkey, you know.
I completely agree with you. I mean, they have these people's budget groups springing up all over the nation, and Los Angeles has one, even Nashville. So they just saw the inequities out there with the shortages of corona's tests, of PPEs, and a well-funded police response, and they went into action. So that's kind of what's motivating them. So, but we completely agree with you about the survey. It can be easily manipulated, but it's once again they did go to the supervisors. They did kind of spill their case to them, and the supervisors didn't even respond. So they didn't expect anything to change. They just want to be a part of the process down the road. So it's another group out there that's keeping an eye on things, and they're using the survey to kind of generate some interest. So I can't fault them for that.
No, not at all. And you take a look at their website, and obviously they're very left leaning. I mean, they're using some of the typical socialist, if you will, imagery on their website. So I mean, and that is what it is. I don't care what side politically. So I'm just talking about just the facts of the matter here, or the perception of the matter, right? So it'd be like if you went to a conservative website, and they said, 90% of the people in the United States, or in our county are 100% behind the law enforcement. We go, well, what are your questions, and where'd you get these numbers from, and how many people took the survey, and your political leanings are more law and order conservative type things. So are you actually neutral or unbiased when you come to look at these things? So there's a lot with the people's budget, which is questionable in my end. Whether they want to be part of the process or not. When you start, this is my personal take. When you start having people saying they're speaking for the people, I always question that. So that's just my libertarian point of view.
Well noted.
Noted.
Well noted.
Noted.
Are you correct?
Oh man, this is good stuff. Oh my gosh. Well, you know what, man? We are getting close, and I appreciate everybody today. And I do have to mention one thing. I know this is not Orange County. Over the weekend, 2 law enforcement officers, deputies of the LA County Sheriff's Department, were ambushed and shot. And my heart and prayers go out to them, to their family, to see for a fast recovery. It's a terrible time.
That they're alive. It's a miracle.
Yeah,
they're alive.
Yeah.
I was reading about where the bullets went, and the fact that these 2 people got shot in the head in different places many times, and they're still in their stable condition right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And speedy recovery to those 2 deputies, and I know it's going to be a tough time. I know it's a tough time necessarily right now for their family, and So, all right. Well, Joseph, what do you got going on for the rest of the week?
Cleaning house from the in-laws. They make a mess.
Oh, nice. Yeah, nice. Sounds like a lot of fun. I did a little bit of that in the garage this weekend. Yeah. So we got So coming forward, tomorrow we have business continuity today. On Thursday we have Drive Time OC. On Friday we have Drive Time OC. Brian, what's coming up on the Drive Time OC shows?
Those show notes are still in development, being Monday, and it is a live show talking about current events. But thanks for talking about it. Yeah,
no problem. Hey, yeah, you guys should really check out Drive Time OC. It's a really good show. It's hilarious. It's a good time. Good information that's coming out there. And it's Orange County centric. So it's one of those things that I think that is a must. You must sign up for that.
Yeah. Also, in conjunction with me and Seth talking about current events, we have an update with what's going on in real estate in Orange County. We have Feel Good Friday with Miss Tina Anderson. Todd DeVoe pops on Thursday and giving us a weekly preparedness tip. And we have what's streaming and or playing at the theaters now that they're back open with Jay Shear. So it's a great show. Check it out.
I highly recommend it. So Joe, thank you today for your time. Thank you, producer Brian, for sitting there and making sure things run smoothly here. It's all these things are very important. And don't forget, please follow us on Facebook, on YouTube, on Twitter, on your favorite podcast player. We'll like to see you, and we'll see you guys all next week. Remember, vote local, stay informed, and until next week, stay safe and stay aware.